Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're diving into a comprehensive explainer that serves as your ultimate study guide for the US government. Whether you're gearing up for a huge civics exam, or honestly, just trying to make sense of the systems governing our daily lives, you are in the exact right place. We're going to take this massive, sometimes confusing topic, break it down, and make it completely accessible. Here's a quick look at our visual syllabus. We'll cover the constitutional blueprint, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, then compare the Senate and House, and finally wrap up with state and local governments. Let's jump right in. Starting off with Section 1, the constitutional blueprint. This is literally the very foundation of our entire government. You see, the founders had one primary goal in mind: preventing tyranny. So, if you're taking notes right now, definitely highlight this high-yield concept: checks and balances. You can think of it as the core operating system of the US government. It's this genuinely brilliant system designed to ensure no single branch ever gains too much power. Essentially, it forces the legislative, executive, and judicial branches to police each other. They absolutely have to work together to uphold democracy, maintain the rule of law, and, most importantly, protect your individual rights. Without checks and balances, well, the rest of the blueprint just falls apart. Moving on to Section 2, the executive branch. Their main job, enforcing the law. Think of the president as essentially the CEO of a massive, massive enterprise. It's not just one person sitting alone in the Oval Office. It actually encompasses the vice president and a cabinet made up of 15 executive departments that employ millions of civilians. For example, you have the Department of State, handling our foreign policy and treaties. Then there's the Department of Defense, keeping the military strong to defend the nation. These departments, they're really the hands and feet of the president's agenda. But what's truly fascinating to me is the vast array of independent agencies. These groups are actually designed to operate based on hard scientific evidence and specialized expertise, kind of shielding them from day-to-day politics. I mean, we're talking about the EPA enforcing the Clean Water Act, NASA pushing the absolute boundaries of space exploration, and the CIA gathering global intelligence. They really show us that the president is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to executing the laws of the land. Okay, let's head into Section 3, the legislative branch. This is often called the engine of the government. Why the engine? Because this branch holds the power of the purse, meaning they control federal spending, and the power of the pen, meaning they're the ones actually writing the laws. Structurally speaking, the U.S. Congress is a bicameral institution. Now, if you aren't familiar with that word, bicameral simply means it's a legislative body made up of two separate chambers. Together, these two chambers take on the massive job of drafting, debating, and passing the legislation that governs us. Plus, they hold the profound power to declare war. To manage all this responsibility, and honestly to avoid just having 535 people shouting over each other in one giant room, Congress relies on workhorse committees. You've got the Appropriations Committee handling spending, the Judiciary Committee, and so on. Plus, they lean heavily on support agencies. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, gives them nonpartisan budget analysis, while the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, acts like an investigative arm. They audit government programs to make sure our tax dollars are actually being used efficiently. That brings us to Section 4, Senate versus House. Let's do a quick bicameral comparison. If you're studying for an exam right now, pay really close attention to the distinct personalities of these two chambers. On one hand, you have the exclusive upper chamber, the Senate. On the other, the population-based lower chamber, the House of Representatives. While the Senate holds the power to advise on treaties and try impeachment cases, the House gets to initiate all revenue bills and formally impeach federal officials. It's actually a perfect example of checks and balances happening right inside a single branch. Let's look at the exact numbers. The Senate is made up of exactly 100 members. That's 2 senators from every single state, regardless of whether that state has 1 million people or 40 million people. And they serve longer, 6-year terms. The founders actually designed it this way to make the Senate a much more stable, deliberative body, one that's at least somewhat insulated from the rapid, day-to-day shifts in public opinion. Now, contrast that with the House of Representatives, which has exactly 435 members. Here, the number of reps a state gets is based entirely on its population. Plus, these representatives have to run for election every 2 years. That super short cycle, completely by design. It forces members of the House to stay constantly accountable to their local districts, keeping them much, much closer to the immediate will of the people. Next up is Section 5, the judicial branch. the ultimate guardian of the Constitution. So the judiciary doesn't write laws, and they don't enforce them. Instead, they interpret them. They apply the law to specific cases and ensure nothing conflicts with the Constitution. I always like to think of the federal court system as an upward-flowing, three-tiered pyramid. Cases start at the very base in one of the 94 district courts. If someone believes there was a legal error made there, they can appeal up to the middle tier, which is one of the 13 courts of appeals. And finally, sitting at the very apex of this pyramid, you have the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. Now, here is a crucial vocabulary term you are almost guaranteed to see on a test: writ of certiorari. The Supreme Court is made up of 9 justices, but they definitely don't hear every single case that comes their way. In fact, it's a tiny percentage. Instead, they grant a writ of certiorari, which is just a formal agreement to hear a specific case. They usually only do this when an issue involves a really critical, unresolved question of federal law or some major constitutional conflict affecting the entire nation. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the immense power of the judicial branch. When the Supreme Court issues a final ruling, that's it. It becomes the binding law of the land for all lower courts. By interpreting these laws and ensuring constitutional compliance, landmark cases like Brown v. Board of Education, which struck down racial segregation in public schools, or Obergefell v. Hodges, legalizing same-sex marriage, they profoundly shape civil rights, social justice, and economic policy for the entire country. But just like the other branches, the judiciary absolutely does not operate in a vacuum. It has its own vital backbone of support agencies. These groups conduct research and establish policies just to ensure that justice and things like sentencing are administered fairly and impartially across the whole federal system. All right, our final section, number 6, state and local governments, bringing things a little closer to home. While the federal government is busy handling the big picture, your state governments actually mirror that federal structure to handle your day-to-day needs. You have a governor serving as the executive, state legislatures crafting state laws, and state courts interpreting them. Then, zooming in even further, you've got local city councils and county boards. These are the folks tackling your most immediate issues. We're talking local law enforcement, public safety, zoning laws, and even your local school budgets. So as you wrap up your notes for this study guide, I want you to ask yourself a question. If the president is the CEO of the whole country, who really holds more power over your actual daily life? Is it the leader sitting in the Oval Office, or is it the mayor right down the street? Truly understanding that balance is the real key to mastering American civics. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next explainer.